The What Your Next podcast helps you build a TBR of future favorite books. In each episode, Lauren and Maine interviews authors and book influencers to recommend books they loved for you to pick up today. If you're an avid reader, always looking for your next great read, then the show's for you. Hi, Amanda. Welcome to What Your Next podcast.
Hi, Laura. Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So happy to have you here. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm Amanda Elliot. I am an author living in New York City. I really like to cook. I like to eat, probably even more than I like to cook. Obviously, I like to write and to read, and I collect cookbooks, which are currently overflowing because I live in a small apartment and don't have enough bookshelves. So they're just stacked all over the floor right now.
Oh my gosh. So I collect cookbooks, but on Kindle. So what I do is I borrow them from the library and figure out if I like them. I read the cookbook and then I buy it afterwards. But I used to collect them in real life, but I was like, I don't have the space for it. So Kindle is like my way to go.
That is way smarter than what I do. I just love the photos. Like there's something about like just cracking open the spine of like a brand new cookbook and looking at like the glossy full color photos of the food that just makes me really excited.
So I'm learning how to cook. So I gotta ask you questions like which cookbooks are your go-to? Which ones are like your tried and true ones, and which ones are like pretty to look like, some cute recipes maybe you should check out, or maybe you should skip them, you know?
Oh my God. So I tend to cook mostly vegetarian at home. I'm not a vegetarian, but I mostly cook that way at home. So one of my favorite at-home cookbooks is East by Mira Sodha, Sodha. It's a collection of vegetarian recipes from all over Asia. I think she specializes in Indian food, so there's a lot of amazing Indian food in there, and a lot of amazing of other recipes from all over Asia. And I've cooked probably like half that cookbook, and everything I've tried from there has been amazing. I love the Ottolenghi cookbooks, mostly for how pretty they look. Like they have a lot of really beautiful photos and a lot of like really interesting ideas, but they're often a little complicated for kind of every day, but I really like looking at them. And for desserts, I'm cooking my way now through Dessert Person by Claire Saffitz. I got a KitchenAid for my wedding, and so I've been using that and trying out like baking with yeast and things like that, and it's really magical the way it just grows and doubles in an hour or whatever. And so I've been cooking things from that, babkas and palas and all sorts of fun things.
Gosh, that sounds amazing. As someone who's like a novice, like I learned how to pickle onions. Like I was like, I master pickling onions, you know. Like, dessert is like mastering a whole new, or just baking bread is a whole new era of like, that's like more next level cooking.
Well, I feel like you can't go wrong. Pickled onions are great. Like I always have a thing of pickled onions in my fridge, and it's fun to experiment with pickling them in different vinegars or different acids, and you know they go with so many things. So I love pickled onions.
Thank you. So speaking of food, Sadie on the Plate is a foodie, food theme, food related, book. Tell us a little about it.
Yeah, so Sadie on a Plate follows Sadie, who is a chef living in Seattle. And basically in the same week, she is both fired and dumped by her boss, which bad decision there. Don't recommend dating your boss. She would not either. And so she is very down in the dumps and dispirited about both the state of her career and her love life. And then she's given the invitation to compete on her favorite reality cooking show, Chef Supreme, which is kind of modeled on Top Chef, which I'm a huge fan of. And so, of course, she says yes. And on her way to New York to compete, she meets a guy in the plane who is super hot and super great, and they have great chemistry. He sweeps her off her feet on a whirlwind date. They go to like a Korean speakeasy in Queens, and then she has to go to set. And as it turns out, even though she was hoping he would be a fellow competitor and she'd see him again, he's actually a judge. And there's all sorts of like ethical issues there. And it's basically how long can they keep anyone else from seeing their chemistry before the pot boils over and they get in trouble.
Gosh, I love this. So favorite Top Chef season, since this is a favorite show for you.
Oh my God. I gotta say I don't know which number it is. It was the season before last season. Am I allowed to spoil it? Like with the winner?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, it's the one where Melissa King won. I was a huge Melissa fan the entire season. I was rooting for her, and generally the person I'm rooting for never wins. So I was just like, holding my breath all season, like, go Melissa, go Melissa, go Melissa. And I loved all the other competitors too. It was one of those seasons where I really didn't dislike anyone. So I would have been happy to see like pretty much any of them win. But I was just I loved her food and I loved her, and I was just so excited to see her win.
So I love this. So what kind of research did you complete to write a book about a cooking show with the judges and like the reality, the specific stuff?
The best research. Like it's one of those things where like I can't believe this is my job. To get kind of a behind the scenes look at Top Chef and other food reality shows, it was just a lot of kind of reading behind the scenes articles, listening to behind the scenes podcasts, where like the chefs will go on and talk about the behind the scenes. And watching each season closely and paying attention to the food, like how the chefs choose what foods to cook, how they're influenced by their backgrounds, how it's influenced by the challenge, and doing some of my own experimenting in the kitchen with some of the foods that they cooked. And I also threw some of my own family recipes and family history and kind of stuff in there too. So the main character, Sadie, her specialty is cooking Jewish food, and her goal is to open up kind of a restaurant featuring spins on Jewish cuisine. And so I got to draw. I'm Jewish. I'm from a Jewish family, and so I got to draw kind of on my own family recipes and family history for the things that she cooks, and then kind of trying to kick it up a notch for a cooking show to impress the judges. So as one example, my mom makes a really good noodle kugel, which is kind of like a pudding. It's kind of like cream cheesy, and it's almost like a noodle cheesecake, and my mom's has raisins in it. And so I kind of use that recipe as a base, but Sadie turns it savory in a challenge, and then kind of puts them into balls and fries them in potato chip crumbs like arancini. And so I kind of did things like that with the food I knew, and then with the food I'd researched in crafting each chef's kind of culinary viewpoint and the things that they cooked. And it was so much fun.
I can imagine. I'll be hungry. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'll be
I
like
hope so.
I'll be like so hungry. I'm like, okay, I just need to eat another thing.
Every time someone says that about the book, every time they're like, "You made me so hungry," I'm like, "Yes, thank you. That is the goal. I've achieved my goal."
You did a good job. So this is good. So what are you working next?
Next, I have another rom-com coming in spring 2023, which is it's called Best Served Hot, and it's about two dueling restaurant critics. One who is kind of an old school restaurant reviewer at like a newspaper, and one who is kind of part of the new guard who reviews on social media, and how their worldviews clash and their opinions on food clash, and then of course they're forced to work together. And they come both to understand each other more than they wanted, and to also realize that there's some feelings growing between them. So that was a lot of fun to write too. It's kind of a love letter to the restaurants that I've known and loved, especially during the pandemic, because I wrote it when so many restaurants were closed and were struggling. And so it was pretty weird writing a book about going out to restaurants when, I could not go to any restaurants.
Oh my gosh, I miss New York dining. I used to live in New York, and like nothing compares to New York dining, like the restaurants and stuff like that. The food is so good.
So good. And you can find like pretty much anything at any time of day. It's one of my favorite things about living in New York.
Yeah, it is. I miss it. It's been 2 years, and I'm like, it's just like nothing compares. Where I am, it's nothing compares to New York dining. So yeah, it's one of the things I'm like, I just need to go back to New York just to eat my way through, So let's chat some book recommendations. Do you have any books you recommend our listeners to pick up?
Oh, I have so many recommendations. It's hard to limit myself, but I will try.
Okay.
So in terms of like kind of foodie romances and rom-coms, one of my absolute favorites that I read recently was Battle Royal by Lucy Parker. So it's two competing, I guess maybe I have a theme where I love people who are competing for things, especially if it's food related. But it's two bakers who are competing to bake the royal wedding cake. And it's kind of a grumpy sunshine romance. The hero is very grumpy, the heroine is very sunshine, and it's all reflected in their baking. And of course, they fall in love. And I was just laughing out loud through the whole book, and also drooling over all of the foods that they create. So I definitely would want them to bake me a cake. I also really loved recently Accidentally Engaged by Farrah Heron. It's about a woman who dreams of becoming a professional baker, even as she's working kind of a dead-end job in finance that she does not like. And then this is another competition one. I swear I did not notice this theme when I was picking these books.
It's a foodie recommendation.
She ends up pretending to be in a relationship so that she can compete on a couple's cooking show, where the prize is a scholarship to her dream kind of baking school. And she starts out kind of, not liking her pretend fiance, but then of course real feelings develop between them. And there's so much amazing Indian food that they make in this book. Like, I was drooling. And it also had recipes in the back, which I always love when there are books with recipes in the back, because I really want to make that. I think it's Tanzanian egg curry that I really wanted to make. I loved kind of like stepping away from the foodie romance. Another kind of genre that I love are kind of really dreamy fantasies or historical fantasies, like basically anything with like an old house with a million doors and like, weird things hiding within. So pretty much all of Alex Harrow's books, like the 10,000 Doors of January, the Once and Future Witches, they all have kind of that like that dreamy feeling where anything can happen. So I feel like I'm cheating a little bit by kind of shoving 3 books into there. And then totally switching genres into nonfiction, I really loved Beautiful Country by Julie Tian Wang. I'm very sorry if I mispronounce her name. But that is a memoir of the author who grew up undocumented in New York City. And I thought it was beautifully written and heartbreaking. And I loved reading about an experience, in the city where I live that was very different from my own.
I love these recommendations. So did you read Love and Other Disasters?
I haven't yet, but it's on my list. I'm very excited about it.
It is more like MasterChef. I would consider that it should be the competition, like they do Gordon Ramsay's MasterChef, home cooks recommendation competition. That's what I envisioned when I was listening to it. The audiobook's excellent, but I envisioned that competition, home cooks trying to come to the next level. So awesome. So these are great recommendations. So tell us where we can find you online.
So online, I am Amanda Panich. Amanda Panitch, which is the name I use for my middle grade and young adult books. And I'm Amanda Panich on both Twitter and Instagram.
Awesome. Thank you, Amanda, for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It was really fun.
If you enjoyed this podcast, feel free to share with friends, subscribe, rate, and review the show. This is the easiest way to support the podcast. Today's episode's partner is Libra FM. If you're an audiobook listener, then you should add Libra FM as your go-to source for paid audiobooks. Libra FM makes it possible for you to buy audiobooks through your local bookstore. Memberships start at $14.95, and they also have great sales for women's audiobooks each month for $3.99, thanks to the Kiss Club. To sign up for Libra FM, please visit whattoreadnextblog.com/LibraFM. You will receive a free audiobook when you sign up for a monthly subscription. If you purchase a subscription through our link, you will be supporting the podcast at no cost to you. The What to Read Next podcast is part of the Frolic Podcast Network. Please visit frolic.media/podcast to discover new shows to tune in. Thank you so much for listening and have a great day.